We have continuing counterintelligence efforts, Your Honor, meaning we are monitoring all our personnel as far as their daily activities is concerned. And yun naman sa paggamit, ay nagkakaroon tayo ng mga random drug testing to our personnel from time to time para mahuli yung mga gumagamit. Lalong-lalo na yung mga suspected na tingin natin ay gumagamit na, we require them to undergo a drug test, Your Honor.
Thank you. So far, ilan na po yung mga PDEA agents ang natanggal sa trabaho, nasibak dahil sila po pala ay later on, they were found out to be drug users na?
Your Honor, our data here for internal cleansing data, calendar year 2011 up to October of 2024. Dismissed, we have 96 PDEA agents. Suspended, 164.
96 and 164. So ito po mga PDEA agents na nakitaan or napatunayan na sila pala ay later on ay gumagamit na ng droga.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. So na-determine ng PDEA the reasons bakit nangyari ito. So ano po mga programa ginagawa ang PDEA na para ma-ensure na hindi na maulit to? Of course, sinabi nyo may mga random drug testing. Wala ho ba kayong ginagawang studies bakit ang isang PDEA agent ay nalululong sa droga at na-involved sa drug trafficking? At yung mga follow-up question, yung mga po na-dismiss na binanggit nyo ng mga numbers, na-dismiss sila because are they drug users, drug pushers, o naging drug suppliers na rin?
Your Honor, bihira na po tayo nagkakaroon ng solid PDEA personnel na nag-operate, Your Honor. Most of the time, pag nag-operate ng PDEA, it is together with other law enforcement agency like PNP or NBI para mas maiwasan yung mga kung may plano silang gumawa ng kalukuhan, Your Honor, may counter-checking among and between law enforcement agencies.
Thank you. Good sponsor. Last question.
Your Honor, last question?
Sunday's Cooperative.
Can I have 1 minute break, Your Honor? Siya lang ko sa
1 minute break, yes.
Senator Tulfo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good sponsor. Out of the 95 dismissed, 164 suspended, 4 fined, 103 admonished from 2011 to 2024, ilan po doon ang dahil sa drugs?
Ilan? Lahat, Your Honor, yung 22, puro drug-related ito.
Laton. Napakarami.
Positive sa drugs.
So, suspended, 164, positive sa drugs to. So, when you say suspended, so naibalik sila. And admonish, 103.
Pag drug-related, Your Honor, dismiss kagad, tanggal. Hindi pwede yung suspension. Itong mga suspension na ito, mga minor administrative
Okay.
violation siguro, Your Honor.
Okay. So,
kaya
itong
sila
95
suspended.
ang dismissed.
Yes, Your
Ang
Honor.
involved sa drug kasi 95. Okay, at hindi na po sila naibalik.
Hindi na ibalik.
Okay, great. Now let's talk about the reward system, Mr. President, good sponsor. Paano po yung procedure sa pagbibigay ng reward? Ito ho ba, I would assume, ay sa mga tipster?
Your Honor, there are two kinds of reward system. One is for the tipster, yung informant, nagbigay ng impormasyon na nag-positive yung operations. At pangalawa, yung mga lumen, yung mga operative mismo, AFP, PNP, PDEA, lahat binibigyan ng monetary reward. Your Honor.
Okay. Kaya ako po natanong yan, so paano po natin malaman na yung binigyan ng reward ay kapitbahay lang pala ng isang cooperative at siya naman talaga ang nagtrabaho kaya natumbok niya yung isang, say, drug den, and then after na matumbok niya, sabi niya, para kumita ko rito kasi kung idideklara niya siyang nakita, ibibigyan siya ng medalya versus kung sabihin niya may tipster siya, magkakaroon pa siya ng pera. So ang gagawin niya, tatawag siya ng kapitbahay niya o kainuman niya, pre, tatakuban naman yung mukha mo papalabasin ko na lang ikaw ang tipster ko at mabibigyan ka ng milyones. So paano natin masiguro na hindi po nangyari yun sa PDEA?
Your Honor, merong board po na nag-deliberate dito sa mga bibigyan ng reward. Hindi lang po ito, ang board is not purely composed of PDEA officers but merong taga-academ, merong taga-religious sector, may business sector. There are 4 sectors being represented here, Your Honor, aside from the law enforcement. Dalawa from the business daw, Your Honor. So sila po yung bibet ng nagkakandak ng vetting process doon sa mga tatanggap ng rewards, Your Honor. At kasama doon sa vetting is to see to it na hindi ito hausyaw na tao, personality na ginamit lang ng police para ultimately yung reward mapupunta lang din sa police. Mga civilian po ito, Your Honor. Hindi po makalusot yung mga diskarte ng mga law enforcement na gano'n na scheme, Your Honor.
So ibig sabihin, from the very start na dinedevelop ng kanilang informante, yung isa pong pinaproject nilang say drug den, nakalista na po yung pangalan ng informante yon hanggang sa naging positive yung pag-raid at naging successful doon na sa drug den, saka ibibigay reward dun sa informante yon dahil siya yung nasa listahan from the get-go mula sa umpisa hanggang sa naging successful yung pagkahuli o pagka-raid ng isang drug den na pre-project.
Not necessarily, Your Honor, yung pangalan niya mismo makuha, malista. But from the very start, the fingerprint of that tipster is already being taken from him. Hanggang sa matapos, the same fingerprint pa rin yung ginagamit para pag-claim ng reward. Kasi there are instances wherein informants, yung tipsters, ayaw nila mabulabog yung kanilang identity. So hanggang kuha lang tayo, yung right thumb fingerprint, Your Honor.
Okay, hindi po ako namimaloso po, good sponsor, Mr. President.
Yeah, but the handler, of course, the handler, Your Honor, kilala niya yung tao. Yung
Kaya
handler.
po.
Aside from the fingerprint, personal identity niya, kilala ng handler.
Kunyari, si Mario, isang PDEA agent, at meron po siya na-discovery na isang malaking bahay ng supplier, drugs. Alam niya na yon dahil siyempre sa kanyang experience and all. And then sabi niya, maging successful ang pag-grade ko rito. Ito ay mabubunga. So tatawag siya ng kanyang kapitbahay at ipapa-fingerprint niya para sabihin niya na kapag ito ay naging successful, ikaw ang sasabihin kong informante ko rito para kumita ka, hati tayo sa kita. Yun po ibig sabihin. So paano natin maiwasan na mangyari po yun na talagang legit yung informante, talagang nagbigay siya ng tamang informasyon at hindi nakihati o nakikomisyon lamang yung PDEA agent.
Your Honor, during the deliberation of the rewards, ay mahuhuli po yan dahil sa interview portion. In-interview, although hindi pinapakita yung mukha, in-interview siya at malalaman ng mga members ng board kung ito ay drama-drama lamang or kuha lang ito, scripted yung kanilang papel doon sa drug bust na yun, Your Honor. Malalaman po, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Good sponsor. Now, nais ko palang pasalamatan ng PDEA kung hindi ko pa kayo napasalamatan nung gumawa po ako ng surprise visit sa mga bus stations at sumama po ang ilang PDEA agents at nag-conduct ng drug testing at isa nga doon naging positive. Now, doon po sa drug testing, ano po yung nahuli doon? Is it shabu lamang? Kasama ba doon yung cocaine, marijuana?
Your Honor, yung test kit na ginamit doon sa request mo na testing ay 4. Shabu, marijuana, cocaine, ecstasy, Your Honor. Pwede daw magiging 6 or 7 pero mas mahal. Mahal yung test kit na yun kung i-cover pa yung ibang types of drugs. Pero sa atin, yung prevalent na drug abuse is by the use of shabu, marijuana, cocaine, and ecstasy, Your Honor.
Okay. Marijuana, cocaine, ecstasy, and shabu.
Yes, Your Honor. Isang kit lang yun, pero all those four substances tested and can be found out kapag ikaw positive doon. Sa
Ecstasy,
apat yan.
kasama po yung ecstasy.
Kasama, Your Honor, ecstasy.
Paano po kung heroin addict po yung na-test?
Wala. Hindi kasama doon sa apat.
Hindi kasama?
Hindi kasama sa apat, Your Honor.
Paano kung PCP addict siya? Hindi rin kasama, lusot siya. Paano kung codeine and morphine addict siya? Lusot din siya.
Pinoprofile daw, Your Honor, yung ina-drug test natin. Halimbawa, malaman sa kanyang background na yung kanyang involvement ay nandoon sa ganitong klaseng drug. So, yun ang gagamitin po na test kit.
Mahirap po yung profiling. Kailangan po talaga yung scientific science. So siguro po, sabi niyo may kamahalan, baka pwede tayo mag-invest na yung 7-panel coverage na doon sa lahat na nabanggit ko. Especially kung ito po ay mga taong may kaya sa buhay.
Yes, Your Honor. And even the follicle test that you've been advocating, Your Honor.
Yung hair follicle test, yes.
Follicle test.
Hanapan po natin ang budget yan na sana po magkaroon tayo ng...
Ay, still being developed, Your Honor. Development of hair follicle drug testing, 13 million. So, they developed that, Your Honor.
Billion o million?
Million. 13 million.
Mura lang.
Mura lang, Your Honor.
Sige po.
Development stage ba, Your Honor? Hindi ba alam? Baka later, may additional na gasto pa ito.
With the indulgence of the Senator Tulfo, is there any private hair follicle center here in Philippines?
Right now, Your Honor, we have the high precision diagnostic laboratory. Right now, Your Honor, for the information of the body, wala pang na-accredit ang DOH ng hair follicle testing center o laboratory dito sa Pilipinas. So wala pa. Magiging first pa itong dinedevelop ng PDEA pag ito yung successful.
Now, good sponsor, dumako tayo sa mga dredging vessels. During kahinahin lang, suspected drugs, agad-agad ang PDEA ang gagawa ng confirmation because they're the agency na may capability makapagsabi na kung drugs ba yun o hindi. Hindi yung Coast Guard.
Right now, Your Honor, wala doon talaga. Wala silang presensya doon sa nagbo-board sa vessel na nag-inspection. Purely custom.
Wala ho ba kayong balak na makipag-MOA? From other countries to do dredging at malalaking barko ito at marami pong mga crew dito. So pwede po isiksik yung supot-supot o sapo-sapong drugs kung saan yan sa engine, sa kama, what have you. So kung may kasamang PDEA, Coast Guard, magsa-reversa, masiguro natin 99% na pumapasok ay walang drogang karga, yung mga kapsupot. So,
Yes, Your Honor, it's very possible to happen. But right now, coordinate with kung anong agency yung nagkukontrol ng mga dredging vessels na yan para makasama ang PDEA sa boarding party to conduct the inspection.
Okay. Last na naman po.
Yes.
Mr. President,
Good sponsor. May presence po ba ang PDEA sa Bureau of Customs compound?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ano po yung ginagawa ng PDEA doon sa Bureau of Customs? Ano po yung kanilang mga duties and responsibilities sa loob po ng Customs compound?
Your Honor, the presence of PDEA can be observed in the airport and the NAIA airport and the MICP. Kasama po sila doon sa interdiction team with the PNP, Bureau of Customs, NICA, and PDEA. Aviation Security of the PNP, Your Honor, kasama po sila doon sa interdiction team para mag-search ng mga parcels na dumarating.
Okay. Kasi sa Bureau of Customs, Your Honor, may tinatawag na X-ray. Okay. Yung dadaan sa yellow lane and red lane, yun yung nafa-flag down na possible may problema. Especially kung ito ay galing sa mga bansa, itong container na ito, na hotbed ng drugs. So, dapat, ibig sabihin, nandun yung PDEA na randomly magbukas ng mga container at gumamit ng K9 para amuyin yung mga kargamentong yun. Yun po ba yung ginagawa na ng PDEA? At kapag ginagawa, bakit po nakalusot yung magnetic container na kilo-kilo, daan-daang kilong shabu? Meron.
Your Honor, pagdating kasi dyan daw sa yung portion na yan, it's a purely customs area and sila po ang nasusunod dyan. The only thing that PDEA can do is to be there once their presence is requested by the customs. Hindi po sila na on their own papasok doon sa custom zone at maghanap randomly ng target, Your Honor. Kailangan talagang dadaan pa sila sa customs authorities for coordination purposes.
Exactly. So, wala bang balak ang PDEA na makipag-MOA sa Department of Finance, the DBB and the Department of Finance, kasi yung Customs is under Department of Finance, para maobliga yung mga taga-Bureau of Customs, payagan po yung mga taga-PDEA na magkaroon ng presence sa loob ng compound nila for the purpose of looking out for drugs na possible na na-smuggle papasok ng bansa.
We will try to coordinate with the Department of Finance, Your Honor. If it is feasible, we will try, Your Honor. Maganda po talaga yan. Maganda po talaga yan. Kailangan talaga yung proactive approach pagdating dyan. Hindi yung nakatambay nga ang PDEA doon sa loob ng MICP or sa loob ng NAIA, pero maghihintay lang kung kailan kailan itatap yung services nila by the Bureau of Customs. Dapat on their own sana, kung pwede, meron na information na narinig, na natanggap na itong particular container ba na ito, posible itong may laman, dapat on their own, kaya na nila kagad umaksyon. Pero as said, Your Honor, we have to go through the customs authorities. So, yung suggestion mo, Your Honor, is being considered seriously by PDEA.
Thank you. Last naman talaga, sponsor. 41.3% of first-time drug users were between ages 15 and 19. 1 in 3 students in the 12th grade experienced using marijuana. Alam mo ba ito ng PDEA? At kung alam ng PDEA ito, ano pong ginagawa ng PDEA at meron ba kayong mga programa para ma-address ito? Thank you.
Your Honor, that data came from DDB, and the DDB is strengthening the preventive education, advocacy, civic awareness by strengthening the drug education program in the schools. And the establishment of special drug education centers at the community level.
Thank you, Mr.
For
President.
out-of-school youth.
Thank you, Mr. President. The good sponsor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Recommendations na nasa proseso ngang ito, ano yung expected timeline ng Commission for full implementation? Like, kailan po ma-finalize yung MOA at magsisimula na po yung automatic fund release sa tulong ng Land Bank? Kailan po fully implemented yung enhanced automation? Or fully implemented na po ba yun?
For full automation, that will take about 1 year, Mr. President.
Alright. And yung automatic fund release, 1 year din po ba, good sponsor?
That one is just 6 months.
6 months. So is it possible, good sponsor, na lahat ng mga rekomendasyon na are in the process of being fully implemented, ang timeline para doon ay from 6 months to 1 year on average? Or meron po bang ilan natatagal pa ng kaunti?
No, it won't go beyond 1 year, Mr. President.
Salamat. That's good to know po. So more or less 1 school year din para sa mga estudyante. Salamat, good sponsor. Now, over the years, hundreds of students have reached out to my office expressing their uncertainties about when their much-needed scholarship funds would arrive. Students who want to voice their grievances are held back by fear of suffering repercussions, to which the UNIFAS Secretariat mentioned that they have grievance mechanisms in place. Pwede po bang magbigay linaw ang good sponsor sa mga grievance mechanisms in place para sa estudyante? Paano sinisiguro ng komisyon na mga estudyante ay mabibigyan ng isang safe environment para isaboses yung mga concerns nila nang walang takot ng repercussion mula man sa respective CHEDRO nila o higher education institution, good sponsor.
So, Mr. President, as soon as they receive a complaint, they will send a show cause order. I was just shown a copy of a complaint that came from Her Honor's office, and they issued a show cause specifically if it's just a student without the need of a senator to endorse the complaint, ganun din ba? And we are assured that the process is the same.
So makatanggap lang ang commission wala pang estudyanteng nagreklamo ng ganon sa opisina ko, good sponsor. Ano yun? Ano ba yun? Mas grabe yung mga reklamo. Grabe yung reklamo ko doon sa English nila. Good sponsor. Are there any other ways in English or whatever other language that the Commission provides a safe environment for students to bring their concerns or complaints forward?
A hotline din sila, but I will ask a follow-up question for Her Honor's better for Her Honor and my better understanding. Katulad niyan yung sulat na pinakita niyo sa akin, may name ng student. Pag nagsabi yung student na itago yung pangalan niya, kung hindi naman specific, tinatago niyo naman. O yun naman, tinatago naman nila yung
Parang
pangalan.
tayo dito sa Senado, good sponsor, nire-redact. Opo. So, any other ways that a safe environment is generated for the student without fear of repercussions? Good sponsor.
They also called the president of the SUC directly.
Salamat, good sponsor. I hope these and any other ways ay nako-communicate po sa mga estudyante just to empower them to take proactive action and within the system provided by CHED and the UNIFAS Secretariat to get resolution to these situations. So dako naman po ako sa additional 30.1 billion pesos good sponsor na tinalakay din ni Senator Sherwin kanina. I too have no doubt that the education sector and our young people need this funding support. But I am worried that CHED's track record and low absorptive capacity could result in a wastage of these important funds. The House added an additional 30.1 billion pesos to CHED's new general appropriations, allocating 14.8 billion pesos to the UACTES Tertiary Education Subsidy Fund and 15.3 billion pesos to the Tulong Dunong Program. Pwede po bang mag-provide ang good sponsor ng datos o kahit projections para suportahan yung additional na 30.1 billion pesos? Ilang mga benepisyaryo, pareho sa current at saka sa new grantees, ang magbebenepisyo dito, good sponsor?
Your Honor, this representation has no way of giving Her Honor information on how the tulong dunong of 15 billion will be implemented. None. So, as I've said in the earlier, it's a...
I shouldn't expect you to be a mind reader, good sponsor.
Yes.
Okay po.
I can try. I have an imaginative mind. But no, we do not know. Now, but I just want to point out that there is a 14.7, so almost 15 billion budget for tests.
Yes.
If I just use Her Honor's question, if I connect this to the discussion we had with the chairman of the Committee on Education, Senator Gatchalian, currently the subsidy given to private school students is 60,000. It was reduced to 20,000 for 2025, but very recently the board said 27,000. Less than half of the 60,000 they have been receiving the past few years. So definitely an increase in tests will help, because the 27,000 can be augmented to at least bring it back to 60,000. I don't know how many. Kasi yung 15 billion, 14.7 billion, at 20,000 per beneficiary, that is 750,000 beneficiaries, 750,000. Currently, the test beneficiaries are roughly 500, 400 plus, 600 na. So, itong 600 will now be
25%
receiving
more.
a reduced amount of 27, as I mentioned, right? So, if this additional 14B would be given to 750,000 beneficiaries, so the first 600 can get that 20 and will almost be brought back to the 60,000 that they're receiving. So for me, okay yon, yung sa test. Yung sa tulong-dunong, ano ba to? We assume or it is a number, 7,500. Okay. So sa tulong-dunong, the grant is 7,500 per SEM or 15,000 a year. And that is 1 million beneficiaries. The problem is, as I mentioned earlier, the following year, they have to be absorbed by tests. And we are only at 600. How would we absorb 1 million? How? So next year, I was asking them, where will we find the funding for that? And currently, the completion rate for the beneficiaries is close to 80%. With the amount that we have been giving them, which is 60,000 for private schools and 40,000 for public. If UNIFAS will continue with their plan of reducing this, then as we had discussed with Senator Gatchalian, most likely there will be consequences. Possibly less will be able to finish, because it would appear now that if you look at 27 and the computation before, when they set it at 60, 20,000 was for tuition and the 40 was for all the other needs to go to school. 7,000 na lang yon. Na pagkasyahin lahat-lahat ng pangangailangan, from food to transportation to school materials, projects, so on and so forth for the year. So that's going to be tough, Mr. President.
Well, salamat, good sponsor, na kahit hindi mind reader ang good sponsor, at least nakapaggawa nga ng ilang projections.
Scenarios.
Yes, or scenarios given the requirements to the students, yung changing amounts na iga-grant, and yung mandates nung original programs. So dito po sa pareho sa test at saka sa tulong-dunong, predetermined po ba yung beneficiaries? And paano isosustain sila yung funding sa mga items na ito mula sa CHED? So, simpleng tatanggapin ba ng CHED yung pondong ito, yung dagdag na pondong ito, good sponsor?
To a large extent, the test beneficiaries are predetermined because they will continue giving the same beneficiary for the freshman year all the way till the senior year.
Yes.
As I mentioned, doon naman sa tulong-dunong, yung beneficiaries niyan must then be absorbed by tests. So in that sense, predetermined. But ang tulong-dunong kasi can be availed of, I think there's not really any specific standard. The income lang of 400,000. So for so long as the beneficiary would fit that bracket, then any student can apply for that.
All right.
Mr. President.
So, yung tanong na how to sustain, kailangan may capacity yung isang programa by sophomore year of the students originally supported by the first program ay masalo sila. So, will CHED simply accept the fund as they are appropriated right now?
Well, assuming that after the BICAM, this is still
Yes.
there, I guess wala naman silang choice na hindi accept yung fund. Yes, they will accept it, Mr. President. You know, I'm guessing, I don't know if it's her honor, if it's part of her follow-up questions or the presiding officer now. Remember the number that CHED gave us earlier was 1.6 million applicants. So based on my discussion now with her honor, where I said that sa test lalabas siya ng 750,000 beneficiaries at 20,000 per person, but it's actually now 27, so mababawasan ng konti yung 750. Baka naman yun yung formula ng house, kasi nga 1.6 eh. So they have now 1M. But again, I'm just guessing.
Yes, the good sponsor is maybe a little more successfully mind reading. Opo. And pwede po bang magkaroon ng idea, good sponsor, paano yung subsidies, parehong yung test at saka yung tulong-dunong ay ni-utilize by the receiving HEIs para i-improve yung pinag-uusapan din ng good sponsor at ni Senator Sherwin kanina, para i-improve yung kanilang carrying capacity o service capacity. Halimbawa, may income-derived ba yung mga HEIs, good sponsor?
Yun lang po sa part ng test. 20,000 for 20,000 goes to the schools, goes to the SUCs. So they will then use that. For private schools only, no? Because yung sa public schools, wala na silang idadagdag dahil covered na yun dun sa higher education fund. So for the private schools, they will get the 20,000.
And hopefully yun yung paraan na once yung mga tulong-dunong freshmen lilipat sa test bilang sophomores, na improve yung carrying o service capacity ng HEIs sa pamamagitan din ng test. Is that how it could work? Good sponsor.
Sorry, I missed
Alright,
that last
good sponsor.
statement. It's just
Opo.
yes.
So, continuing to think aloud with a good sponsor. So, ito ba isang paraan, whether by design or by the way the programs operate, evolve, and interact with each other, na by the time yung mga tulong-dunong freshmen maging sophomores at lilipat sa test sa susunod na school year, nakapag-improve ng service or carrying capacity HEIs na nag-i-implement ng test para masalo itong mga original tulong-dunong students with sponsor.
Sa public school, wala akong papasok na funding sa SUCs kasi nga that amount will just go to the student for their own needs.
Right.
So, hindi nakakatulong sa carrying
Sa public
capacity.
school. Okay.
Sa private, ano ba yun? Ba't kunyari bigyan mo 7.5? Anong part ko nang ibibigay nila? Or buo yun? Kailangan ibigay? Bahala na siya. So, kung kulang siya ng 2. Okay. So, sa private school, the way it works, that 7,500 per SEM that is received, they can choose to augment the tuition fee that's due, or if the tuition fee is within the 7,500, they can use that entire amount. So, yun naka-private, pero sa public, wala.
Wala. Okay. So yung private lang ang pwedeng in a way, counterpart dun sa subsidies mula sa CHED. Salamat. And no other income as such na de-derive ang HEIs? Good sponsor?
None.
Alright. Salamat, good sponsor. So, dako po ako sa absorptive capacity at saka deficiencies. So, while these scholarship programs hold immense potential, it's essential to ensure that the CHED has the capacity to implement them, along with its other programs, implement them effectively, and utilize the allocated funds efficiently. To this end, I'd like to draw attention to some concerning data on CHED's fund utilization rate. During the Senate Committee Budget hearing, CHED reported low obligation and disbursement rates for fiscal year 2024, with only 27% of the funds obligated and 22% disbursed. Chair De Vera noted that the Commission is struggling to obligate and disburse funds due to the 6 billion peso augmentation allocated for this year. I firmly believe in the importance of making education more accessible through scholarships. However, paano po pinaplano ng CHED i-manage ang dagdag na 30.1 billion pesos sa pondo habang ngayon pa lang humaharap na siya sa hamon sa kasalukuyang 6 billion peso na augmentation? We don't want a situation in which students have to wait years to receive their scholarships again, good sponsor.
Oh, actually, Mr. President, the chairman did say that the 6 billion, the 6 billion of tulong-dulong funds was difficult, no, to disburse. It was difficult because it was a big change. It's a big amount. That's why we always go back to, in as much as all of us here would like to support education or any other important programs, we also look at the the absorptive capacity
Yes.
of the agency. But I can't resist to go back to, kasi what they received was additional tests and additional tulong-dunong. Yung sa test kasi talaga ay standby, dapat inaugment nyo na lang yung existing para nga kesa sa binabaan nyo, tapos dinagdagan nyo, tapos nahihirapan din kayo mag-implement. Di dapat, anyway, that's my position.
So, difficult nga daw yung paggastos ng 6 billion pesos. Ngayon, nakaharap sa dagdag na 5 times that amount. So, may plano ba ang CHED paano i-manage yung 5 times ng halagang sinabi nila nahihirapan silang i-manage, good sponsor?
So, Mr. President, as I've already mentioned, this representation is supportive of returning to the previous amount, the test subsidy of 60,000 and 40,000.
Yes.
So I was just asking CHED and UNIFAS Executive Director, since they were nodding their head vigorously when Her Honor asked a question, kung kaya ba nodding their head to my question, kung mahihirapan sila to disburse, and definitely yes, mahihirapan. So sabi ko, if you just use that amount to go back to not even increase, just to go back to the former amount being given to the test beneficiaries, then again they're nodding their head vigorously that yes, that would be much easier to implement. So that's one option. But again, this was a insertion of the House, so I don't know if we can touch that.
Oo nga pala,
We
good
can try,
sponsor.
we can
Good,
discuss with them.
Right, which is what the BICAM is for. So, but good point, good sponsor. Salamat sa paalalang iyon. But in any case, nanggaling man sa House, as the good sponsor indirectly said, pagdating sa BICAM, pwedeng maging subject ng parehong houses at parehong panels. So, oo nga, kung bumalik tayo sa 60,000 per student, at tama po ba, good sponsor, 750,000 beneficiaries? Tama po ba yung nakuha kong...
Yeah, so basically, I just made a rough computation that at
Yes.
14.7, which is roughly 15B, at 20,000 per beneficiaries, that would roughly cover around 750,000 beneficiaries. But I said it's less because
Okay.
I only learned today that the UNIFAS board brought up again the subsidy to private school students to 27.
Yes.
So mag-iba yung numbers na ng konti.
Okay po. But at least salamat, good sponsor, na opening up that conversation about paano mas optimally magagamit ng CHED yung halagang ito to achieve their mandates. Yun yung magiging huling paksa ko after I finish with this topic. So, additionally, for fiscal year 2023, approximately 18.3 billion pesos worth of higher education subsidies were found to have deficiencies, as highlighted in the 2023 COA report. The same issues persist, including delays in the release of tertiary education subsidies to students, overpayments and duplicate payments, unliquidated fund transfers, and insufficient documentation to support disbursements. Ano pong institutional reforms ang ini-implement ng CHED, good sponsor? Meron po bang mga plano para i-streamline yung processes, palakasin yung monitoring mechanisms, at i-enhance yung overall capacity ng ahensya, i-manage yung mga programang ito ng mabisa, good sponsor?
So actually, Mr. President, those observations of COA were the CHED replied to them, and after that, they already were given an unqualified opinion. So basically, they have responded satisfactory to those concerns.
And anong mga reforms ang in-implement nila or are implementing to have received that unqualified opinion? And any plans to sustain receiving unqualified opinions?
Okay. Okay. Things like the automation of the free higher ed, and then the land bank card disbursement, those kind of interventions or changes.
So yung mga recommendations po ng task force report nag-align sa reforms na ini-implement nila, good sponsor?
That is correct, Mr. President.
Salamat. So, huli sa paksang ito, pwede bang mag-request sa komisyon na magsumite ng comprehensive plan na nagdedetalye kung paano nila ini-intend na efficiently i-obligate at i-disburse yung kanilang pondo para siguruhin na yung mga scholars matatanggap yung subsidies nila sa tamang panahon, good sponsor?
That is all in the COA response, so we'll give Her Honor a copy of that COA response.
Thank you, good sponsor. Alright, sa huling paksa ko na lang po, good sponsor, sa interpellation na to, tungkol sa free higher education and SUC's deficits. So continuing in that line of thinking, opened up with a good sponsor a few minutes ago. I ask these questions because I also want to make sense, with as little mind reading as possible. I want to make sense also of the House's decision to propose such a substantial increase, 30 billion pesos, effectively doubling the NEP proposed budget. That increase for scholarships, while other critical needs in higher education remain unmet. It's no secret that our state universities and colleges, as key implementers of the UACTE Act, are riddled with challenges, particularly budget deficiencies. These deficiencies have accumulated over the past years, impacting their ability to provide quality education and support services to students. Adding to this concern, I understand that a portion of the budget for UACTE free higher education, specifically 7.06 billion pesos under purpose number 10, was transferred to unprogrammed appropriations. Ito na naman po tayo, good sponsor. This amount, as I understand it, was intended to pay the arrears for free higher education in SUCs under the UACTE, accumulated in 2022 and 2023. This transfer to unprogrammed appropriations effectively deprioritizes this crucial budget line item, which should be dedicated to reimbursing SUCs and covering their deficiencies. It raises concerns about government's commitment to fully funding the UACTE Act and ensuring the financial stability of our SUCs. Pwede po bang i-confirm ng good sponsor itong transfer at magbigay linaw sa current status ng mga arrears na ito? Ganong kalaki o ganong karami sa 7.06 billion pesos ang na-release at naibayad sa SUC's good sponsor?
Sorry, was Her Honor's last question how much of the 6.7 was released?
Yes, and paid to the SUCs.
Okay. It's okay. Okay. So, this representation shares the observation and the concern of Her Honor. She is correct that 6.7 billion was placed under unprogrammed appropriation.
6.7 billion good sponsor or 7.06 billion?
Ang nasa akin is 6.7.
6.7
Let me
lamang.
check.
Okay po.
Anyway, let me confirm that amount. But so as I was saying that so there's this amount which we're still questioning if it's 6.7 or 7 was 7 point, is it 7.6?
7.06.
7.06. Okay, let's check what that amount is. It's under unprogrammed appropriations. As of now, none of it has been released, but this same amount already appears in the GAA for 2025. I do just have. Billion.
And it's in the unprogrammed appropriations, good sponsor?
Yes, it is in the unprogrammed. However, very DBM has informed the SUCs that they can prepare the billings for this. As to whether they will actually be able to fund it, this representation wouldn't know. But that's a good sign that they've been asked to prepare their billing.
For the full sum
Yes.
across SUCs of 7.06 billion pesos.
Well, they've been asked to prepare
Thank
their
you.
billing for that.
Thank you, good sponsor. Okay. And the current status of these arrears, that sum of 7.06 billion pesos.
Yes, because there hasn't been any initial payments made. But what I just wanted to add to the discussion, consistent with the discussion with Senator Gatchalian, is that, again, the amount, part of the reason why there's this difference in amount is because of the DBM manner of computation, which is based on the enrollment 2 years before, and what is provided by law, which is the projection of the SUC. And what I added into the discussion is that that projection should also be based on carrying capacity, because an SUC may want to accommodate all the young people of college age, but have no carrying capacity for that. And I think that should be a very important part of the discussion and the computation, Mr. President.
Before we leave my last question, good sponsor, about these arrears ng mga SUCs, pwede po bang makahingi ng input through the good sponsor mula sa PASUK? Maaari bang malaman mula sa PASUK kung may collectibles or receivables pa sila, at kung mayroon, magkano in particular mula sa UACTE, good sponsor?
Anyway, Mr. President. Na-minus na yan. Na-minus na yan. Okay. When? So actually, Mr. President, for 2022 and 2023, the total amount due is 6.7 billion. That is why my amount was 6.7 billion.
Yes, I
I still do not
understand.
understand why there's a difference between the 6.7 and the 7.06.
Right.
But at least I know now where the 6.7 came from. That is the amount from PASOK on the amount due them. And this already includes almost 1 billion paid by CHED to reduce that amount, which was 1 billion pesos more. Okay? So 6.7 yung due until 2023. For 2024, the record of PASOK based on the estimate, more or less, coming from the different SUKs is an additional 2.3 billion.
Okay.
There. So there.
Maraming salamat para doon, good sponsor. I was hoping that the amount for 2024 added to the for 2022 and 23 would total the 7.06, but it even goes beyond to 8
Yeah.
billion plus. So
It does.
a bit of a mystery nga po where the 7.06 has come from. And bukod po or dagdag dito sa arrears, pwede po bang i-inform tayo ng good sponsor sa current total amount of budget deficits kaugnay ng higher education for SUKs mula fiscal years 2022 to 2025? So projected until next year, good sponsor.
For 2025, they project that 3.69, so 3.7 billion in addition.
In addition to the amounts we were talking about earlier, good sponsor. So sorry, where is that? From 2022 to 2023, 6.7 billion. And then for 2024, 2.3 billion.
Yes.
So 9 billion running total.
Yes.
Plus projected 3.7 billion next year, 12.7 billion
That is
total.
correct, yes.
12.7. So really quite a significant amount, good sponsor. So to my last question, so there is a deficit of 12.7 billion in the budget for free higher education for SUCs. Meanwhile, an additional 30.1 billion, or almost 3 times as much, was added to the CHED budget, even as SUCs experience these budget deficits to provide free higher education to their students. Given the recurring issues that the CHED encounters, my concern is that the CHED will be unable to disburse these funds while we neglect the fundamental needs of our SUCs and the full implementation of free higher education. Hindi kaya, good sponsor, na mas prudent approach ay unang magtaya na fully i-fund yung free higher education budgets ng SUCs, lalo na habang naghihirap ang komisyon na i-obligate at i-disburse yung kanilang fiscal year 2024 funds, good sponsor.
This representation agrees with Her Honor's observations on the clear gap, no, in the funding requirements. But on the other hand, just want to reiterate, merely funding free higher education without comprehensively analyzing what is the absorptive capacity of every SUC and ensuring the delivery of quality education will not solve the problem, because simply accepting more students based on projected desires of people to enroll does not automatically translate to quality education. And as we have said, there is already a finding from PIDS that 40% of our graduates are overqualified. Does that mean that they are not intelligent or not well educated? I don't think so. It may mean that they're job mismatch, which is why we passed a law on that. It may also mean that well, I think that's the biggest takeaway, that the courses that they finish are not aligned with the job opportunities available. So I think this discussion cannot be simplified by simply saying that just put more funding in free higher education. It really must be a comprehensive analysis of what is the absorptive capacity of every SUC and how we can strengthen the delivery per SUC.
Salamat, good sponsor. At talagang kailangan niyang comprehensive analysis because indeed, it's not a simple situation. Maraming moving parts, factors or variables at talagang dapat umiwas tayo sa mga simplistic lang na mga akala natin solusyon which may create even more problems. And I appreciate na binigyang diin ng good sponsor even throughout the whole interpellation at kahit sa huling tanong na to, yung mga variables about the absorptive capacity of each SUC. Kanina, in fairness, pinag-usapan din natin yung absorptive capacity ng CHED mismo and then also for the SUCs, yung delivering quality education. It makes me think na baka maging mabunga pag-aralan kung paano babanggain itong mga variables na ito among others, no, yung arrears at saka budget deficits ng mga SUCs, yung absorptive capacity ng mga SUCs at ng CHED sa ngayon, yung delivery of quality education. Salamat din po dun sa finding ng PIDS. In fact, yung isang observation dito on the side, so 40% of our graduates are overqualified and sabi nga ng good sponsor, probably the biggest or one of the biggest takeaways is jobs mismatch. So I would think it's not a matter of definitely not a matter of reducing the quality of our graduates, but improving the quality of the jobs in our economy. So outside the education system per se, pero in the economy, generating more decent jobs para mag-match dun sa mga graduates natin. And so I also, well, salamat sa agreement ng good sponsor sa observation ng representasyong ito. And I would also continue along her line of thinking to say na sana mapag-aralan nga, makapaggawa ng isang comprehensive analysis paano pagbabanggain o pagsasama-samahin yung mga variables na ito. So in the same spirit na pinag-isipan kanina ng good sponsor, ano kaya mailaan ng CHED yung dagdag na 30.1 billion pesos ngayon para itaas yung value ng subsidy lalong-lalo na sa mga test students. I think it's still worth exploring at least for a while, no, or hanggang sa BICAM, yung paano pwedeng mag-complement yung optimal use ng CHED sa dagdag na pondo niya at yung mas pagsalo dun sa budget deficits ng mga SUCs as they project it also until next year. Dahil it's a little over 1/3 lamang naman nung dagdag na pondo para sa CHED. So, but I'll leave it at that for now, good sponsor. Huling follow-up na lang dun sa kung may sagot na po ang commission tungkol sa unang tanong.
Meron na
itong
po.
Representation. Alright, salamat, good sponsor.
So Her Honor asked about the implementation of the Safe Spaces Law. I am told that all SUCs now have a committee on decorum and investigation that handles cases covered by the Safe Spaces Law. All SUCs have orientation programs for faculty, students, and staff on the law, and that the board of the SUCs handle cases on safe spaces violation and have actually suspended and dismissed faculty and employees. The data on cases and penalties may be submitted if Her Honor would like to see it,
Yes,
which
please,
I'm
good
sure she
sponsor.
would. So
Opo, you are right, good
then.
sponsor.
And then with respect to HEIs, which have conducted orientation, the initial data shows that 694 of them, 694 have conducted the orientation.
Salamat, good sponsor. So, 100% ang nagko-comply nitong mga various obligations under the Safe Spaces Act. And the 100% is accounted for by 694, tama, HEIs inspected by the CHED.
All, so yes.
Or 600 SUCs. Salamat, good sponsor. How private HEIs po? Or lahat-lahat po ba yon?
There's only 100 plus SUCs. So that's public and private. So, sorry, to be clear, all SUCs
Yes.
have complied. But the 600 orientation covers also the private schools.
Around 594, given the sum.
It's 690
694.
kasi minus 100, ilan na tayo? Ilan na tayong SUC?
690.
581.
581. Okay, and then, so a little more than 100 SUCs.
Yes, Mr. President.
All right. So, abangan ko na lang po, good sponsor, yung mga hininging mga dokumento at saka datos, and we'll continue engaging in these issues with the help of the good sponsor. Maraming salamat po. Salamat po, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President, to our Deputy Minority Floor Leader.
Majority Leader.
Explanation that under the 2020 NEP, CDA's proposed budget
of 889,424 million is in fact much lower than the agency's previous 2024 budget at 1.335 billion. The House of Representatives in the General Appropriations Bill proposed no changes in the CDA's budget. On the other hand, given the food and agriculture crisis today, as well as our issues with the PUV modernization, it is our proposal that the Senate partially restore last year's budget by 300 million at least, resulting in a proposed budget of 1.189 billion. The additional 300 million will provide financial assistance to agricultural and food crops, particularly in the micro sector, as well as provide priorities to the transport co-ops now being organized for the PUV and other modernization. And with that, I'd like to propose, therefore, an increase in the NEP as well as in the GAB. Thank you.
Personnel to settle down.
May we request the members of the CDA to already take their respective seats and prepare for the deliberation. We recognize Senator Amy Marcos for her opening statement.
Yes,
Thank you very much, Mr.
President.
Speaker. And today, I sponsor the budget for 2025 of the Cooperative Development Authority, the CDA, with the explanation that under the 2025 NEP, CDA's proposed budget of 889,424 million is in fact much lower than the agency's previous 2024 budget at 1.335 billion. The House of Representatives in the General Appropriations Bill proposed no changes in the CDA's budget. On the other hand, given the food and agricultural crisis today, as well as our issues with the PUV modernization, it is our proposal that the Senate partially restore last year's budget by 300 million at least, resulting in a proposed budget of 1.189 billion. The additional 300 million will provide financial assistance to agricultural and food co-ops, particularly in the micro sector, as well as provide priorities to the transport co-ops now being organized for the PUV and other modernization. And with that, I'd like to propose, therefore, an increase in the NEP as well as in the GAB. Thank you.
Majority Leader will be the first.
And truly counter to all the cooperativism principles. It's only located in a BIR, IRR. As I understand it, there is no law that mandates it. And as a matter of fact, we are in the process, following the President's SONA, of amending or attempting to suggest amendments to the Cooperative Code. And that is one of the prohibitions I would like to introduce because it's simply impossible in the hinterland, in the islands, in the far-flung, remote, and hard-to-reach areas to demand from fisher folk and marginal farmers TIN numbers. They are not covered by those TIN numbers and they're not about to apply for them. So demanding that they have TIN numbers in order to avail of a tax exemption that's rightfully theirs is not fair. So we're in agreement with you and I'm counting on your support for the amendments to the Co-op Code to prohibit such a requirement.
Thank you to the good sponsor, and thank you for expressing her support and her agreement to this issue. And also, I can see the authority nodding their heads, the leaders of the authority. May I ask the good sponsor, what is the authority doing in order to at least temporarily, in the absence of law, temporarily address this issue? Because there are now a lot of co-ops under threat that their certificate of tax exemption will be revoked. And if that happens, they will be charging VAT to their members, they'll be paying income taxes, they'll be withholding taxes. What is the commission, or what is the authority doing in the meantime that the law is not there in order to settle this issue?
Yes, this has been a dispute that's been rankling between the BIR and the CDA for many years now. There have been repeated efforts to urge BIR to suspend this requirement, given that, as I said earlier, it's merely an IRR and is not required by law. acts as an obstacle to the exercise of a legal right, which is the tax exemption. But BIR has again and again refused, saying that it will be in violation of their IRR. Perhaps it's really time that we amend the co-op code and at the same time speak to the BIR and make certain that this requirement, which is tantamount to a violation of the co-op code, be halted.
I agree with the good sponsor that you have co-ops you have co-ops whose members are farmers, fisher folks, in the case of Valenzuela, fish wall vendors, barbecue vendors, and we're trying to lure them to be part of the cooperative system so that they will be empowered, they will be trained to save, they'll be trained to go to the cooperatives and borrow instead of going to the 5-6 offers. But in doing so, we are now requiring them to go to the BIR to get their TIN numbers, which is not in their horizon because they're part of the informal sector. Kaya nga ho sila tinawag informal sector. So with that, Madam Sponsor, I'm joining you in your direction of amending the cooperative code, making it explicit that members, especially in the informal sector, should not be forced to get their TIN numbers, and co-op should continue to enjoy their incentives and their exemptions as designed because they are part of our anti-poor or our empowering vehicle, so that our constituents will be trained to save and trained to be part of the cooperative system. And in the meantime, we'll bring this up to the Senate. And allow me to suggest to the authority to submit to us their position papers, data, and everything, so that we can use those documents in our hearings, especially in conducting oversight hearings over this issue. So let me just...
Kanina na i-reconsider yung hindi pagpayag na gamitin ng korporasyon yung salitang co-op sa pangalan nila. Bakit po kaya, good sponsor? Ilang entities ba ang gumagamit ng mga salitang ito? Cooperative, co-op, co-op na may hyphen o co-op na letrang K sa mga pangalan nilang rehistrado sa SEC o sa DTI o kahit sa COMELEC, kahit pa sa National Electrification Administration sa kaso ng mga electric co-ops at sa kahit ano pang ibang ahensya. May listahan ba ang CDA o nag-random sampling ng masasampulan ng bantang kaso o investigasyon? Sa bilang na ito, ilang motu proprio investigation ang kinundukta ng CDA para mag-establish ng paglabag sa Article 140. May established at harmonized policy ba na pinagbabawal ang ibang regulatory agencies na mag-aproba ng entities na dala yung mga salitang cooperative, co-op, co-op na may hyphen o co-op na letrang K, at hanggang sa anong extent ang CDA may eksklusibong jurisdiction sa usaping ito, good sponsor?
Ang batas ay maliwanag at sinusundan lang nila yung batas. Kaya yun nga, ang sinasabi natin, sana maamyandahan dahil nga nakikita natin nagkakaproblema. Doon sa ating batas, talagang pinagbabawal yung paggamit ng mga pangalan na ito na patungkol sa pagiging kooperatiba, samantalang korporasyon, partnership, o di kaya kinukubli lamang ang identidad ng mga sosyo. Samantalang ang nais pala, gamitin yung tax exemption o linlangin yung mga miyembro at ang publiko. Ang batas ay maliwanag, iisa lang ang exempted, ito yung electric co-ops na pwedeng gamitin yung cooperative mismo at yung cooperative na pangalan kahit hindi sila tumatalima eksakto doon sa pagiging kooperatiba. At yun nga, yung membership, pati yung kanilang pagmi-meeting 2 beses sa taon, iba kasi yung sa electric co-ops. At isa pang rin-recommenda ko sana sa pag-amyenda, itong transport co-ops, kasi naiba sila doon sa pangkaraniwang co-op dahil ngayon talagang binubuo natin ang iba't ibang transport co-op, may higit 1,000 na, and sila ang magiging daan para sa PUB modernization. Pero sumasailalim sila sa OTC or Office of Transport Co-op sa ilalim ng DOTR. So ayan na naman yung katanungan, ang CDA ang magre-rehistro pero ang magmo-monitor at magre-regulate yung DOTR OTC naman. Kaya ito yung mga lumalabas na mga iba't ibang problema at detalye na kailangan talagang pag-aralan natin maigi kung ano ba talaga ang dapat natin gawin. Para sa akin, yung transport co-op, naiiba din Kaya dapat isama rin sa electric co-ops at ma-exempt ng tuluyan.
Maraming salamat, good sponsor. Mukhang mahihinog nga yung reconsideration process as such dun nga sa posibleng pag-amyenda ng batas. Pero ngayon pa lang, dahil nagkaroon nga ng ganitong tensyonado o conflictual na situation, siguro mabunga rin establish yung facts talaga dun sa mga facts na ine-enumerate ng CDA. At let's turn the table din, a good sponsor. What if the CDA, in the course of its action, causes grave, irreparable damage or injury or reputational loss to the entity it has accused? What will be the remedy available to the chamber, a good sponsor?
Well, ang alam ko, may penalties kapag ginamit yung pangalan o yung iba't ibang permutation itong salitang co-op. So, talagang may penalty yan at napa-fine sila. Pero yung causing damage, siguro aabutin na ng kaso yan. Although may quasi-judicial din ng CDA, pwede ring pag-usapan yan at ipasok sa mga kaso na pwedeng hatulan.
Salamat, good sponsor. Bagamat ang itinanong ko ay kung ang CDA ay dahil sa mga pagkilos niya ay siya ang makapag-cause ng damage o injury or reputational loss, kung ano yung remedy available dun sa co-op chamber of a good sponsor.
Sa palagay ko, wala pa naman naghahabla o nagsasalita ng ganon, so wala pa namang pangyayaring ganon.
Okay. At harinawa, ma-preempt dun sa reconsideration process sa pagitan ng dalawang panig. And just for the record, good sponsor, simple search sa SEC, daan-daan ang gumagamit ng cooperatives and its derivatives. Good
Perhaps
sponsor.
the clarification can also be made that there are co-ops no longer in good standing that are listed in the website of the CDA. To the extent that that causes damage to reputation and moral damage, perhaps that could be said. But given that the regulatory agency for cooperatives is CDA, it's within their mandate. Ang problema, itong chamber na hindi naman nagrehistro bilang co-op, talagang hindi sumasailalim sa CDA.
Salamat, good sponsor. And, I lost my train of thought. Tungkol sa, may importanteng sinabi yung good sponsor ngayon lang na meron akong naisip pero nalimutan ko. Sana maalala ko mamaya bago matapos yung aking interpelasyon ngayong gabi. Gusto ko lang ulitin na in very good standing ang kredibilidad nitong chamber at pati yung mga miyembrong kooperatiba nila. And Mr. President, Madam Chair, dahil mukhang generic na ang salitang cooperative o co-op sa mga entities, it would be an exercise in futility to waste CDA resources running after each one of them. Kaya nga sa panukalang pagbabago sa Philippine Cooperative Code, the proposal is very clear. Quote, organizations registered with other government agencies are allowed to retain the word cooperative in their registered name, provided. So kahit sa intention, good sponsor, nandito na ito, provided that these organizations shall not be entitled to the benefits and privileges under the code. So kumbaga, may intention na to act in good faith. For the record, Madam Chair, Mr. President. Bago po ako dumako sa ibang
Kami ang
paksa.
sang-ayon
Mr.
sa
President.
pagluluwag ng iba't ibang mga regulasyon, pero hindi natin pwedeng talikuran ang utos ng ating batas na ang CDA ang siyang mangangasiwa ng iba't ibang mga kooperatiba. Dahil alam naman natin, marami rin nagsasamantala ng kooperatiba, ginagamit yung mga sosyo. Ilang beses na nangyari yan, pinapapirma yung mga sosyo na walang kamuang-muang. Sa amin, halimbawa, ilang beses na at naimbestigan ng Senado, sa sibuyas hanggang sa bawang, ginamit yung mga sosyo pumirma. At wala naman silang kamalay-malay, pero ginamit yung pangalan ng kooperatiba. Kaya ako, kabado rin ako, masyadong buksan at kinakailangan magkaroon rin tayo ng batas na talagang sinasaayos ang pagtatakbo ng mga iba't ibang co-op. Kilala ko rin yung chamber.
Opo,
Namit
good
ko na
sponsor.
marami sa kanila, taga Cagayan de Oro, yung Climbs at yung iba't iba pang grupo. Kilala rin natin sila at hindi natin alam at siguro kailangan na makipagpulong para matuklasan kung ano nga yung dahilan ng alitan nila sa CDA.
Maraming salamat, good sponsor, para din dun sa pagsuporta sa ganyang klaseng proseso. Reconsider at saka yung magpulong. At dahil, yes? Actually nga po, salamat para doon, Mr. President, at sa good minority leader. Actually, pag tiningnan po natin, may mga grupo sa loob ng co-op chamber na predate or antedate the existence of the CDA. Kaya well and long established yung kredibilidad nila na tumatalima sa batas, hindi mapagsamantala, kundi tumutupad sa kalikasan ng kooperatiba. At siguradong kapag nagkaroon ng ganyang proseso ng pulong o reconsideration, sila ay aktibong lalahok. Yes, Mr. President, I think the good minority leader would like to interject.
Mr. President, just an interjection kasi may pagkausaping legal, di ba? May pagkausaping legal. Siguro tama yung instruction ng batas, bawal gamitin ng co-op. Siguro pero tignan din natin yung paggamit ng salitang cooperative. If you're clearly a chamber of cooperatives. So, I don't think that should be a violation of the law unless you tell us, are they trying to avail of the benefits of a cooperative?
No, what the CDA is simply saying, minority leader, is that they never registered under the CDA and
Correct.
hence cannot be considered a cooperative
Correct,
under the
yes.
CDA rules.
Right. Tama. And then, do they want to be treated like a cooperative by availing of incentives of a cooperative?
Wala naman po.
So if
Kaya
not,
nga,
there is,
nag-apply sila sa SEC eh. Kaya ang pagkaintindi ng lahat, korporasyon sila, hindi co-op.
Kaya nga, yung gamit kasi ng word na cooperative sa pangalan nila is a chamber, their chamber of of cooperative. So, they're not really... So,
The argument can be made that chambers are in fact non-profit corporations
Correct.
and not co-ops at all.
So, what is the issue? Is the issue because there's the use of the word co-op in a name of a juridical entity and they are not registering with CDA? Is that the issue?
That appears to be the issue, yes po.
CDA, let's use common sense. Come on. Let us use common sense. Siguro we will force a juridical entity to register with us if it is acting like a co-op, availing of incentives of a co-op, or quacking like a co-op. That would be all, Mr. President.
Which
Salamat,
is why,
Mr. President, for
kaya
that
sinasabi
humorous
ko,
and very illuminating interjection.
pero
Good sponsor.
yun ang dahilan din kung bakit sinasabi ko kailangan amyendahan nga kasi yung pagkasulat ng ating batas, ang liwaliwanag na bawal. Eh dapat siguro hindi ganun ka-stricto o kaliwanag. Kasi nga, kung hindi naman sinasamantala yung pribilehyo, bakit naman paparusahan?
Kaya Mr. President, that's why I'm making this interjection kasi may usaping legal. Sometimes, pwede ka mag-violate sa letter of the law kasi pagbasa ninyo, bawal gamitin cooperative. But look at the spirit.
The spirit,
Bakit?
of course.
You know the spirit. Alam naman ninyo yan.
Salamat muli, Mr. President, at maraming salamat muli, good minority leader. In fact, the operative word in the name Chamber of Cooperatives is not cooperatives, it's chamber. Opo. So common sense talaga po and good faith. Bago ko iwan itong tanong na ito, good sponsor, follow-up question lamang. Ang CDA officials po ba aware sa identity ng mga tao sa likod ng co-op chamber? Aware po ba sila na yung ilang opisyal ng CDA may mga personal disagreement sa ilang pinuno ng chamber? At ang mga tao ba sa likod ng chamber, hindi ba sila persons in good standing, good sponsor?
Palibasa hindi sila sumailalim sa CDA, hindi kilala ng CDA ayon sa kanila.
Salamat, good sponsor. But I would have hoped for a little more candor mula po sa CDA officials. Dahil paano namang hindi nila kilala, dahil lamang hindi sumailalim, parang napaka-formalistic naman po nung kanilang pagsagot. Paano hindi nila kilala yung identity ng mga tao sa likod ng co-op chamber? Sa pagkaalam ko po, personal knowledge din po ng representasyong ito, meron na nga pong personal disagreements sa pagitan ng ilang pinuno ng chamber at ilang opisyal ng CDA. So, sige, aminin man nila o hindi na magkakakilala yung ilan sa kanila, hindi ba persons in good standing yung mga tao sa likod ng chamber, good sponsor?
Ang sabi nila, palibasa hindi naman nagpakita sa CDA, hindi naman nagpakilala sa anumang opisina o kanino mang opisyal, talagang hindi daw nila kilala.
Sige
At
po,
hindi
good
nila
sponsor.
pilit na inaalam kasi hindi naman pumunta o lumapit na magpatulong.
Sige, good sponsor. Dadako na ako sa ibang paksa. I just regret na hanggang sa katapusan ng tanong na ito, wala pong pinapakitang candor or a little more honesty po. Dahil nga, gaya ng pinag-usapan natin kasama ng minority leader kanina, yung ibang miyembro po ng Chamber of Co-ops ay napakatagal na po sa kilusan ng kooperativismo at nadatnan pa nila yung pagpapanganak natin sa CDA. So talagang hirap akong maniwala hindi sila magkakilala. In any case, dako na ako sa ibang paksa ko, good sponsor. Under RA 11535, all provincial, city, and municipal governments are directed to have a cooperative development officer. Pwede po bang humingi ng update sa CDA sa status ng implementasyon nitong batas? Nagpo-progreso po ba tayo? At anong mga inisyatiba ang isinasagawa ng CDA para siguruhin yung pagtupad sa mandatong ito? May programa at pondo ba ang CDA para sa mga local co-op development officer? May partnership agreement ba sa pagitan ng CDA at DILG sa usaping ito? At for the record, baka naman pati ang liga ng mga cooperative development officers na matagal na nating nakakatrabaho dito sa Senado ay pagbabantaan pa ng CDA na motu proprio investigation at criminal case dahil lang may cooperative sa pangalan nila, good sponsor.
Yes, tama. Mataas naman ang compliance sa awa ng Diyos. Kasi maganda naman yung pagkasulat natin, kung maalala ninyo, sinabi natin, kasi umaangal nun yung mga LGU na wala na daw silang pamplantilla. So ginawa natin, kahit ex officio lang, kinakailangan mag-assign ng talagang co-op development officer. Kung kaya't, nasa 83% ang compliance sa probinsya, sa highly urbanized, nasa 88%. Tapos yung individual cities and municipalities, yun ang medyo mababa, pero tinutulak pa rin sa 67%. So maganda naman ang pagsusunod at pag-implementa ng batas.
Salamat, good sponsor. At may pondo po ba ang CDA para sa pagpapatuloy ng programang ito? At may partnership ba sila sa DILG sa usaping ito? O partnership agreement pala, good sponsor?
Yes, walang hiwalay na pondo o line item ang CDA. Subalit kapag pupunta sa isang lugar at tatawag ng capability building, workshop, training, o kaya may pulong-pulong pagkonsulta sa iba't ibang bagay, talagang tinatawagan nila pati yung mga municipal and other officers na talagang nakatutok sa kooperatiba ang lokal.
Salamat po, good sponsor. At follow up lang, may paglabag ba sa batas? Nakikita ang CDA doon sa may liga ng mga cooperative development officers dahil lang ginagamit ang salitang cooperative?
Yes, ito. I think it's more or less in their understanding a liga which is informal, and there doesn't seem to be any violation in as much as they aren't registered at all.
Okay, good sponsor. Buti na lang, hindi sila registered. Naligtas ang CDA sa tanong ko, good sponsor. Pero I think yung parehong liberality nila sa hindi pagpuna o presume ng bad faith sa isang organisasyon na gumagamit ng salitang cooperative sa pangalan nila pero ang operative term sa pangalan ay liga, sayang at hindi nila naisip sa simula ibigay ito sa isang grupo na nagngangalang chamber, good sponsor. So kung I would just like to request a full listing of established LCDOs by LGU, modalities for the creation of the LCDOs, and the
Anong
directory.
ibig sabihin po ng modalities? Hindi nila masyado naintindihan. Ibibigay lang namin yung LGU sa kayong tao. Yung pangalan, yun lang, di ba? Kasi ganun lang naman eh.
Yes, good sponsor. And additionally, kung ang LCDOs ay yung officers lang mismo or nag-merge ba across LGUs? Okay. Kung nag-merge yung mga local co-op development officers among offices, so kumbaga anong form?
Ang ibig ba nyo sabihin kung full-time siya na co-op officer o ex-officio lang at may iba pang item? Yun
Ganun
ba
po.
yun?
Good sponsor.
Kasi hindi ko masyado naintindihan.
Yes, ganun po,
Oo,
good
kasi
sponsor.
sa maraming munisipyo, lalo na yung maliliit, yung 4 to 6 class, talagang walang hiwalay na co-op officer. Meron siyang ibang trabaho, kung kung MPDO siya, halimbawa, pwede rin siya co-op officer, o kung peso siya, dagdag trabaho lang to.
Opo. So kung pati po yun, yun na nga po, yung modalities of compliance dun sa batas na magkaroon ng LCDO, whether yun po yung solong mandato niya or multitasking siya para sa LGU, pati po action plans ng CDA para sa pagpapalakas ng mga LCDO natin. Good sponsor, kung maaring humingi ng ganong listahan.
Yes, they will comply.
Salamat, good sponsor.
Tuloy-tuloy naman ang pagtitraining at saka yung pag-iikot. Tumaas nga yung kanilang transportation bill para sa 2025 para puspusang ikutin yung mga co-op natin at yung mga co-op officer.
Salamat po. May pondo naman para dun sa transportation.
Talagang naglagay sila ng mas malaki para sa transport, para nga mag-ikot at mag-comply sa kinakailangan, pati na rin yung specialization. Kasi merong mandato ngayon na kinakailangan magkaroon ng specialists. So, kinakailangan kumuha ng mga consultant, tapos yung iba't ibang competencies, for example, yung quasi-judicial and regulatory functions, yung inspection functions, and all these other requirements that will have training components.
Salamat, good sponsor. Sa susunod ko pong tanong, the CDA is entrusted with overseeing the formation of a national alliance of cooperatives, sectoral apex organizations, and regional clustered organizations. Pwede po bang makahingi ng update sa status ng said formations, good sponsor?
Yes, 3 years ago, a national alliance of co-ops was formed.
Okay, salamat, good sponsor.
At ang pagkaalam ko, napaka-active nila kasi buong buwan ng Oktubre, busy-busy po ako kaka-attend ng kanilang iba't ibang pagtitipon sa buong bansa. Masaya sila at masigla at laging nagkakaisa.
Hari nawa, mas magkatotoo po yun, pati sa iba't ibang forma ng mga organisasyon na nagsusulong ng kooperativismo. And as far as this representation is concerned, the idea of RCOs, SAOs, and the NAC is to be consultative mechanisms for and among the cooperatives.
Parati
Again,
silang nasa Senate at nakikilahok sa lahat ng hearing at marami silang opinion. Talagang buong sigla sila pumupunta rito sa Senado sa ating mga iba't ibang hearing.
Opo.
Masaya nga eh.
Naalala ko po yun at nasasaksihan hanggang ngayon, good sponsor. At yun na nga po, when I was Vice Chair of the Senate Committee on Cooperatives, one of the discussion points was that these formations, mula sa RCOs hanggang NACs, ay dapat at marapat na self-organized by the cooperatives themselves in line with the principles of autonomy and independence of cooperatives. Mari po bang malaman yung extent ng participation, so pakikilahok, at papel ng CDA sa paglikha nitong formation? Ano yung magiging policy thrust at direksyon sa pagmentena nitong mga organisasyong ito sa susunod na taon at mga taong darating? Kasama ba dyan sa policy thrust at direksyon na iyan ng NAC, SAO at RCOs ang pagsuporta sa pag-oorganisa at pagpapalakas ng mga party list groups para sa kooperatiba? What's the policy of CDA for its officers and management when it comes to engaging with party list groups and formations? Good sponsor.
Doon muna tayo sa unang sinasabi ninyo,
Apo.
yung National Alliance, ang papel ng CDA ay simpleng-simple lang at tumalima sa batas na nagsasaad na kailangan mabuo yung regional clusters. So nung nabuo na yung regional cluster organizations, binitawan na nila kasi sila na ang naghalal ng kanilang mga opisyal, sila na rin ang nagtatag ng kanilang National Alliance. Yun. Pero yung sa party list, wala pa kami doon. Ano na nga ba yung tanong?
Ang tanong po ay, ano ba ang polisiya ng CDA para sa mga opisyal at management nila pagdating sa pag-engage sa party list groups and formations? At kung kasama ba sa policy thrusts at direction kaugnay ng NAC, SAO at RCOs ang pagsuporta sa pag-oorganisa at pagpapalakas ng mga party list groups para sa kooperatiba?
Ang CDA kailanman hindi nakikialam sa politika at yung mga party list na tumatayong kinatawan ng kooperatiba ay walang kinalaman sa pagtatakbo ng CDA.
Okay. Salamat, good sponsor. And I really hope that the board, administrators, and management of the CDA will be mindful when it comes to their partisan politics and engagement so as not to be negatively perceived to be divisive and biased to any particular group. I would also,
ang nakikita
yes,
ko
good
po, ay
sponsor.
sorry.
Yes,
Ang
Mr.
nakikita
President.
ko po talagang nagbabasagan na nga ng ulo yung dalawa ko minsan eh.
Yung alin
Baliktad
po?
ang nangyayari eh.
Nagbabasagan ng ulo ang alin po, good sponsor?
Yung ibang kinatawan at yung ibang kinatawan ng party list, hindi sang-ayon sa sinasabi ng CDA at yung CDA naman hindi rin sumusunod sa sinasabi ng ibang party list. Marites na po yun, pero talagang totoo yun.
Salamat, good sponsor. I would also like to request the submission of documents pertaining to policy guidelines in the conduct of NAC, SAO, and RCOs, documentation of proceedings, directory of attendees, and plans of action of the CDA for the maintenance of these formations and the funding required for the maintenance and operations of these formations, good sponsor.
Yes, certainly. To the best of our ability, although tulad ng sinabi kanina, wala namang hiwalay na line item at wala namang binibiyak na mga activity na isa-isa. Pero sigurado ako na meron naman silang mga plano tungkol dyan.
Salamat, good sponsor.
Pero hindi mo na kasi kailangan itulak yung mga kooperatiba. Sila mismo ay talagang maliksi at maligayang nagtitipon at nagpupulong-pulong, nagkakaisa at pinag-uusapan. Halimbawa itong issue nga ng pag-aamyenda, nako talaga maingay sila dyan at iba-iba yung opinion, hindi nagkakaisa. At matutuwa ka, buhay na buhay yung debate.
Maraming salamat, good sponsor. Huling tanong ko para sa gabing ito, I'm aware that Section 20 of RA 11364 or the CDA Charter mandates the promotion and development of agri-agra and aqua cooperatives as a priority program to ensure food security and reduce rural poverty. For this year, 2024, an amount of 204 million pesos is allocated to the acquisition and distribution of a combined 2-in-1 rice and corn mill for 170 cooperatives amounting to 1.2 million pesos each. And an amount of 128 million pesos is allocated for startup livelihood capital assistance to 256 consumer, marketing, producers, and logistics CMPL cooperatives with a grant of 500,000 pesos each. Mari po bang malaman ang status ng implementasyon nitong proyekto? Briefly, pwede po bang makakuha ng tugon kung paano pinili ang mga benepisyaryo at ano ang aktual na presyo o cost ng 2-in-1 rice and corn mill pagkatapos ng bidding process? O may bidding process ba to begin with bago acquisition and distribution? Sino ang supplier ng nasabing machinery o equipment? At maaari po bang malaman yung dahilan bakit ang CDA ay directly engaged sa proyekto samantalang tedious task ito ng ibang mga qualified agencies ay pwedeng mag-perform tulad halimbawa ng DA, good sponsor?
Yes, Yes, natutuwa naman ako ibahagi at ipamalita na dalawa ang ginagawa ng ating CDA hinggil sa mga locally funded agri-agra projects. At isa, yung capability enhancement. Ito na yung mga workshop, training, iba't ibang educational effort. At nasa 82.7% na ang kanilang obligated amount. And mas mabagal yung tinatawag na startup capital. Kasi eto naman, nagtatapos pa lamang yung mga workshop, tsaka lang ibibigay, kaya't nasa 38% pa lamang. So eto yung ating sitwasyon. At ang pinagbasehan ay yung mismong co-op code kung saan pwede talaga magbigay ng financial assistance. Ang issue tungkol sa financial assistance na pinagbabawal ay lumabas dito sa problema ng coconut fund. Yung coconut fund na trust fund, na yung DOJ naglabas ng opinion na hindi sila pwedeng tumulong sa financial assistance sa kapital, kundi ang kaya lang nilang gawin, mag-capability building. Kaya lang, maraming abogado na nagsasaad na hindi tama po yun. Dahil ang liwaliwanag naman na sa Section 4, yung paggamit ng pondo, pwede basta sumusunod sa development plan. Doon naman sa development plan, maliwanag rin naman doon sa Chapter 6.2 na yung CDA can provide financial assistance for startup business and livelihood and seed capital. Pero ito yung problema nila at ito ay patungkol sa COCO Levy Fund.
Okay. Salamat, good sponsor. Paano po pinili yung mga benepisyaryo nung hindi masyado dun sa workshop training pero dun sa startup capital na may tama po ba 38% ng accomplishment? Good sponsor.
Yes, etong startup capital, group consultation yan at ang namumuno niyan yung regional cluster organizations na pinag-usapan natin kanina hinggil sa National Alliance ng Co-op. Sila na rin ang pumipili ng mauunang bibigyan ng kapital.
At ano po ang actual cost ng 2-in-1 rice and corn meal? Pagkatapos ng bidding process ba or diretsong acquisition and distribution?
Yes, it's about 1 million, 1.2.
1.2 million. Bidded po ba ito o may ibang proseso para ma-acquire at distribute ang mga ito?
Public bidding po.
Public bidding. Salamat po. Sino pong naging supplier nung nasabing machinery? Sorry?
Sa central office daw, nagpabid sila at kung tama ang pagkaalala nila, Great Agriculture or something like that ang pangalan.
Great Agriculture. At huli po, bagamat may mga pagpapayag sa Cooperative Code kaugnay ng financial assistance, bukod nga dun sa Coconut Levy Fund, dahil tedious din yung ganitong task, bakit hindi na lang pinagawa in partnership sa DA? Bakit CDA ang nag-directly engage sa proyektong ito, good sponsor?
Kasi yan ang isinaad sa batas na talagang ang PCA ang magbibigay ng listahan ng mga coconut farmers. Pagkatapos, ibubuo bilang co-op ng CDA. Parang tandem sila dyan eh. At saka yung CDA na ang magte-turn over ulit at sasabihin kung sino ang nagnanais or nangangailangan ng kapital.
Bagamat good sponsor, sabi na nga natin kanina, hindi pwedeng isama at hindi nga isinama yung mga maliliit na magnyunyog dito sa Startup Capital Program. So, para dun sa mga pwedeng magkaroon ng Startup Capital Program ang CDA sa mga co-op members, bakit hindi na lang pinagawa sa DA? Bakit directly nag-engage ang CDA sa proyektong ito? Good sponsor.
Ang mandate kasi ng CDA ay tulungan yung co-op at micro and small ang talagang tinututok nila. Wala naman sa listahan ng budget ng DA ang tulong at suporta sa co-op. Yung para sa co-op, dinalagay talaga ng DBM mismo sa CDA budget.
Well,
Kaya meron silang mga locally funded na iba't ibang mga modality din.
I understand, good sponsor. At wala man, i-double check ko na lang, pero wala man sa DA yung diretsong pagtulong sa kooperatiba. Pero pag ang CDA tumatayo para sa mga kooperatiba, lalo na nasa Agri-Aqua at saka Agri-Agra rather, ay kapag ang ipoprocure, ay ipamimigay bilang pang-start-up ng mga negosyo ay mga agricultural machinery. Kaya ako naisip na hindi kaya't mas naging madali sana na kasama na lang ng DA. In any case, good sponsor. Maybe,
Palagay ko,
yes, Mr.
makikita
President.
natin, may mga banggit, may iba't ibang banggit ng agrikultura sa iba't ibang department. Kung tutuusin, hindi lang naman ang CDA ang may pondo para sa magsasaka sa kooperatiba, kundi pati na rin ang DAR, andyan din pati yung DSWD. Talagang nagbibigay pa sila ng cash for work sa mga imbakan ng tubig at may project lawa sila. Talagang kinikilala natin na napakaraming magsasaka at mangingisda na nangangailangan ng tulong ng pamahalaan.
Salamat, good sponsor. May we request, Mr. President, Madam Chair, to submit all the supporting documents about this project, from bidding documents, list of beneficiaries, audit report, and performance monitoring of the assistance given, for us to evaluate whether or not these projects are aligned with the mandate of the CDA and if these contribute to the objectives specified under Section 20 of RA 11364. Kung maaari po, good sponsor.
Yes, certainly.
Maraming salamat po. So huli na lang po, kaugnay pa rin nung aming maritesan kanina ng good sponsor at nitong representasyon. Well, allegedly, one of the board members...
Always.
Ano po? Yung, sorry, Mr. President?
Hindi, sinasagot ko lang yung makukulit kong staff. Inaantok na yata.
Medyo lumalalim na rin po ang gabi, good sponsor. Pero maritesan, allegedly, one of the board members is touted to be an aspiring nominee of a co-op party list, or was touted to be. But unfortunately, not registered or did not register sa COMELEC. Totoo po ba ito, good sponsor?
Wala akong alam dyan.
Yung CDA po, may alam po sila?
Wala rin daw.
Wala rin daw. Okay po. So maraming salamat, Mr. President, at maraming salamat, good sponsor, for responding to my queries. Umaasa ako na patuloy na igagalang at itataguyod ng CDA at ng mga opisyal nito ang karapatan at kagalingan ng mga kooperatiba. At gaya ng madalas nating paalala, sa kahit anong regulatory agencies, lalo sa mga agencies na may development functions, kayo po ang pinagkakatiwalaan ng mandato at responsibilidad bilang katuwang sa pagpapaunlad ng mga sektor na inyong pinaglilingkuran at inaasahan na lagit-lagi kayo ay magiging patas at makatarungan. Maraming salamat muli. Kaisa po ako ninyo na patuloy nating isusulong at palalakasin ang kooperativismo sa bansa. Salamat po.
Yes, maraming salamat. At sa kabila ng masasamang balita, gusto ko lang ibida na may labis sa 100, 108 na ang ating mga co-op na bilyonaryo co-op. So, eto nga, at hinihikayat natin ang ating bilyonaryo co-ops na ampunin yung mga micro and small co-ops na siyang nagbubungkal ng lupa at nagbebenta ng pagkain. Sana sila ang tumulong kasi marami silang pera pang investment. Sana mag-invest din sila ng kapraso para sa maliliit. Ikalawa, yung magandang balita ko, nakita ko lang si Senator Coco, ang ating minority leader. Nais ko rin na ipagmalaki na nasa 60% na yung CDA tower building. So, mukhang hindi na kita pinasasalita.
Binasa na naman yung, she read my mind again, Mr. President.
I'm not allowing you to talk anymore, minority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to our sponsor for having answered the question I was only thinking about, Mr. President. So 60% na pala yung ano natin, yung building po na pinapagawa ninyo. Anyway, at any rate, we will make this quick, Mr. President, about the budget lang. Is it correct that our committee report increases the budget of the CDA by 300 million?
Yes, that is correct.
Saan po, ano po ang ating dinagdagan or mayroon ba tayong dinagdag na proyekto or programa?
Yes, as mentioned during the sponsorship, it is an increase of 300 million for financial assistance to be provided. The food and agriculture co-ops, particularly those that are micro and small. And secondly, the brand new transport co-ops that have been registered with both the CDA and the DOTR-OTC.
So the 300 million will be in the nature of financial assistance.
That's correct. We hope that this will be more developmental in as much as we do not want the CDA to be confined to education and workshops and training.
Yung in the earlier interpellation of Senator Risa Hontiveros, she mentioned 2 locally funded projects. Yung isa doon is capital assistance. This is not, yung financial assistance is not in the same nature as that capital assistance. Yung CPML, Cooperative Startup Capital Assistance, that's not in the same nature. Iba, it's not, okay.
Yes, both are in fact the provision of capital, but the micro and small cooperatives livelihood startup is pegged at 250,000 to 400,000. Whereas in the case of the transport co-ops and the agricultural co-ops, the amounts can vary. They can be as small as 50 to 100,000. They can be much larger as the need arises.
So financial assistance in the form of a grant from the CDA.
Yes, that's correct.
So,
right now, it's
yes,
perceived
so-
to be a grant.
Yeah, it's a
Although
grant,
the
okay.
IRR and the modes have not yet been established.
For 2024 GAA, there is no such item in your budget. The giving of financial assistance or grants, do you have? Yes, ito na nga yun. Sinasabi ko nga. Ito yung,
Yes, that
ito ba
was-
yung dalawa, yung capability enhancement of micro agricultural cooperatives through cooperative development project?
Yes.
Is that a financial assistance
Yes,
program, project?
that is
Yes.
financial
Yung isa,
assistance.
yung micro and small consumers, marketing producers, and logistics cooperative startup capital assistance.
Startup capital
Is that also financial assistance?
That is financial assistance. So perhaps
Yes,
to
okay.
tidy up the budget, the 300 million can also fall under the same locally funded.
But what will be the entry now? Kasi sa NEP, ito lang kasi ma'am, talagang nakita ko rin naman ito sa NEP, discontinued yung dalawa eh. Sa NEP, right? Discontinued yung dalawa.
Yes.
Yes, in the
I
NEP
see.
2025.
In
It's
the NEP
the two-
2025, there's no locally funded,
Yes.
no capital startup,
Yes.
no provision of any financial assistance. So the fear is that those who've been trained and organized as co-ops will have no capital to start with, and this is the reason why we are inputting the amount of 300 million to allow them to
Yes,
start.
yes, 300 million nga, but will it now fall under which of the two? Or we are coming up with a new project, an entirely new project?
I believe that this will probably be a brand new project,
sige.
given the very clear-cut priorities of the administration for food and transport.
Yes, o nga. Basta, ang kailangan natin tandaan doon is it's the nature of financial assistance, and then the recipients would be food, agri, transport co-ops.
That's correct.
Yun ang
That's
kailangan natin
the
tandaan.
perception.
Okay, so I wanted just to clarify that. Pero siguro I just got bothered with the points earlier raised, no, na sana hindi kayo mapasukan ng politika. Okay, kasi pag pumasok ang politika sa co-op, hindi kayo co-op, wala eh. The co-op will disintegrate actually because of politics eh. So the leader or the regulatory, the model for co-ops, which is the CDA, wag din kayong pasukan ng politika. Kaya yung mga allegations na gano'n, nakakalungkot at sana nga hindi totoo na you are regulating, you are calling the attention of a certain entity because meron kayong personal grudge or whatever personal issues. Dapat kaya ninyong hiwalayin sa sarili ninyo yun. Unless you did not come from the co-op movement. Did all of you come from the co-op movement? All the leadership of the CDA, yan ang importante because iba po ang characteristic ng cooperator. Opo. Iba po ang characteristic po nila. So just
Ang sabi po nila, takot na takot sila sa party list.
Sige, ganoon lang po. Just a reminder sana, pero medyo, the mere fact na narration, ibig sabihin nun, na yung noise umabot na to the level na it's becoming credible or believable. So, by your actions, pakita ninyo na hindi totoo yung mga istorya na yon, yung mga kwento na yon. Okay? So, tinitingnan ko naman kayo. I looked at the names of the leadership. Wala namang dyan outright na politiko. Okay? Okay. Unless si Penny, nakilala ko yung nag-ambisyon, no? Hindi na. Matagal na po si Penny, nagpaiwan na sa cooperative movement. So,
Wala na, tumanda na po
yes,
sa...
tumanda na.
Nakalbo na rin.
Sasabihin ko sana in his younger years, to may ambition man siya noon, ngayon definitely wala na. So keep it that way, no? Para yung CDA talaga would be a developmental body as well as a regulatory body. But pagdating sa regulatory, kasi may adjudicatory din kayo, you really like court with the integrity of a court. Okay, so maraming salamat po and we wish you all the best. So thank you to our chairwoman. Thank you.
You may now proceed, Senator Marcos.
Thank you very much. And tonight, I sponsor the proposed 2025 budget of the Department of Social Welfare and Development, the DSWD, including its attached and supervised agencies. Under the 2025 NEP, the proposed budget stands at 229.787 billion and is, in fact, 18 billion lower than the agency's budget last year. The House of Representatives, in the General Appropriations Bill, or the GAB, increased the budget to 313.263 billion, or an addition of 83.477 billion over the executive's proposal in the NEP. On the other hand, your committee in the Senate has proposed an increase of the NEP of 3.9 billion, at the same time, a decrease of the House budget by 79.404 billion from the GAB. The 3.9 billion increase from the NEC is composed of the congressional amendment for 3.4 billion in sustainable livelihood and the Senate increase of 500 million for the Quick Response Fund. Those are the salient points in the committee's report.
Thank you, Senator Marcos.